What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lamonts G Custom Live Show, the number 3 podcast. Before I get started, let me reference something that happened over the past 2 weeks. I want to say I might have already mentioned this. I haven't went back and edited any podcast, so not sure if I already mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it again today because it happened again. So let me give you a little bit of context, a little bit of history. And this is not the content I want to say on the podcast. This is just some extra. I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes. So go back to my kindergarten days, all the way up until I was 18, my senior year, I guess you said, high school. It was 3, 4 females that I really, really, really liked. And when I said really, really, really liked, I could have had relationships with these individuals for years and years, and I think I would have been happy. They fit all the criteria that I wanted back then as a young idiot. Excuse me. You know, the beauty, the sexiness, the pretty much everything I wanted back then. Now, I said kindergarten because when I was in kindergarten, there was some females that, you meet as kids, you have a little puppy love towards, and all but one is still here on earth. But listen, they were friends. They were long life friends. Nothing other, no romantic or anything like. These were life friends. And like I said, I think it's 3 or 4 that's still living. One is tragically passed away in a car accident back in the 90s. But as I grow up, as I'm getting older, the way you feel about a girl in the 6th grade is different than the way you felt about a girl in kindergarten. Matter of fact, as I watch Leave It to Beaver, I see that, hell, when you in kindergarten and in grade school, or I should say grammar school, boys didn't like girls and girls didn't like boys, but that damn sure wasn't a situation where I grew up at. Girls like boys and boys like girls. So I saw girls differently in the 6th grade than I did in the kindergarten. But when I got into junior high, that's when I really started to feel girls, you know what I'm saying? And there was 2 or 3, man, that just blew my mind when I saw them. Because, where I grew up at, living in different areas when we all went to high school and junior high, there was different communities, different areas, all at this one high school. So I've never seen these girls before. And they just blew my mind with the beauty. And, like always, girls play with your mind and, tease you a little bit, blah, blah, blah. But, the 2 or 3 that I really, really, really wanted, I talked to and tried to form relationships with, but they always wanted, the tall, dark, and handsome guy, the thug, the bad boy. And that pissed me off, especially with 2 of them. I wanted these chicks bad. I wanted to go with these girls bad. I wanted relationships with these women, with these girls. But they always wanted bad boys. Now, to their credit, I think both of them, even through junior high all the way up until we graduated, I think they stayed with the same dudes. They stayed with the same guys. They didn't date this guy here and then date this guy here that I know of. They always stayed in those relationships. But as I'm older, because I've seen 2 or 3 of these chicks in the past couple of weeks, and I just got to thinking, what if I had formed romantic relationships with these females? Will my life be different? Probably so. And I consider it now a blessing. Not that we didn't form a romantic relationship. I consider it a blessing because, see, listen, I've always been a romantic. Go back to my kindergarten days. I've been a romantic at heart. Watching romantic movies, romantic comedies, going on long walks, reciting poetry. I've been that type of dude. I wasn't never no bad boy, no thug or nothing like that. But girls don't want that at that age. And this is why I say I think I'm blessed. Because when girls, and this is scientific fact, from 12 to 13 all the way up until their mid 20s, girls they gonna lean toward the bad boy. Regardless of how they're raised, if they're raised in a good home, a bad home, whatever the case may be, they gonna gravitate towards the bad boy, the thug. You know, I didn't realize that when I was younger. I was naive to the fact. I just thought, oh, I'm looking at movies where there's grown adults portraying real life individuals. They're going on long walks, holding hands, going out to dinner, reciting poetry, poetry. Keep saying poetry, reciting poetry, and that's the adult romance. The youth, the teenage romance. No, those chicks wanted thugs, man. They wanted bad boys, and I just thank God because it was a true blessing that I never got in a deep relationship with anybody at that age because I really didn't. Watching movies, that's what I felt young love and teenage love should be, but it wasn't. It wasn't at all. You know, you grow up and you find out what real romance, real love is, and you think, man, what if I had, got into a relationship? Life would have been totally different. Totally different. And seeing these chicks within the past couple of weeks got me to thinking about that. I even mentioned it to my wife. Because I listen, and I tell her this all the time. When it comes to my romantic life, from kindergarten to I'm gonna say my first marriage, it was always on the low. I was always pushed aside for the bad boy, for the thug. As a matter of fact, in the early 2000s, when that dude, I can't remember his name, a rapper, he's like, when I wasn't nothing, you didn't want me. Now I'm high, you all on me. That was my theme song. I looked at all the chicks that I tried to date over the years, man. Yeah, you didn't want me when I was nothing. You didn't want me when I was, struggling. When I went to the police academy, bought my own house, bought my own cars, had a motorcycle, had a dog, supporting my matter of fact, I had custody of my two kids. I was hot. Had money in the bank, I was balling. And then they come well, not those particular individuals, but other women over my adult life after my divorce who I tried to holler at and push me to the side. Oh, they come calling. This nigga got a house. This nigga he got it, he got his cars, he got his motorcycle. He raising his two kids. I want a man like that. Nah. When I was down, you didn't want me. Now that I'm higher, you all on me. Nah. So I brushed it to the side and met my current wife, and that all that's been an afterthought, to be honest with you. Really meaningless. But just seeing these individuals put that thought in my mind, and I just thought about it for a while. But getting into the podcast, I listened to a guy yesterday on a show named, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Jeremiah Johnson. He has wrote some books on theology, on the the life before Christ, the life of Christ, and the life after Christ. And this guy is just not somebody who is a deep thinker and write books. No, this guy he has traveled to the Holy Land, and they have discovered artifacts that he actually has brought back with him and has on his possession. And he's talking to different people of faith and showing them these artifacts. He has material dated back to the time of Christ, before Christ. Um, Actually, one thing that was interesting, he actually had a nail, and they dated the nail because of the way it was shaped. Uh, I want to say 1,000, 2,000 years before Christ, back when crucifixion was the way to put people to death, I guess you could say. Anyway, listening to this guy, If I'm lying to you, I'm dying. The hairs on my neck stood up. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Because what this guy was saying was very authentic and very powerful. And the host of the show asked him, well, why don't you have your own church? You come from a religious family. This person has churches, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you have your church? And he said something that was very powerful. Even the ministers, even the reverends has to be ministered to. I ain't never thought about that. So you have a individual who's a pastor of a church, and he's preaching to his flock. Who's ministering to him? Never thought about that. And the reason I say that, because when it comes to true ministry, when it comes to true men of God, I think the intent when they so-called had their calling was authentic. But then, you have money and women and material possessions that come into play because they're not being ministered to. And they become Jim Joneses, they become Creflo Dollars. They become Jamal Bryants. I'm going to do a little bit more digging and on this guy, and I want to be a part of what he's preaching. I really do. Because it's authentic. It's real. And he, in partnership with other men of God, men of faith, have traveled and done tons and tons of research on the life Jesus lived, the life that his disciples lived. And there's a world, now listen, the Bible is our map to heaven. It is. But what this guy's discovering and sharing with the world, there's a life outside that Bible. There's artifacts and treasures that was not mentioned in that Bible that is much of the Bible is what we know. To me, that's powerful. And I hope I can get an illustration in my mind. So, I don't know. I'm just going to use the state of Alabama as an illustration. So we have the documents of the founding and of the state of Alabama, the state constitutions and this and that. We have artifacts showing before Alabama actually became a state, the Indians and I want to say Alabama was on the French rule at one time, the Confederate rule at one time, and Spanish rule at one time. But there was history before then. There's history that's pulled out of the ground in the state in Georgia, in Tennessee, in Mississippi, that is just as much Alabama than what we know of Alabama. You feel me? So this guy talks and speaks in a very professional manner where it just feels so damn authentic and real. And when they go to an archaeological site in Jerusalem or Bethlehem or Egypt or Jordan or Ethiopia, and they date these things. See, I had a big problem with carbon dating back when it first came out. I want to say in the 90s, or probably earlier than that. But when I first learned about carbon dating, I'm like, okay, if you find a nail in the ground, just the way it's formed, you can pretty much date it. Okay, they started making nails like this in the 19th century. They started making nails like this in the 18th century. They started making nails like this in the 17th century. You can date that because just the way it was made. But to look at the fundamental structure and the carbon in the nail. You don't know if that damn nail, other than the way it was made and shaped, and we can date that. But other than that, how can you tell? You can't put it in no machine, and no machine gonna tell you, oh, this came from 2000 BC. No. When it comes to carbon dating, there's a lot I don't know, but I do know this: the breakdown of metal, of steel, if it's not preserved in some type of way, in 2,000 years, it's gonna be gone. I'm sorry. So the artifacts that this individual and his archaeological team found was preserved perfectly. Matter of fact, they found some shrouds. They found a shroud that would have went around the head with the thorns. They actually found the thorns. I can't remember the name. I'm just gonna make up something here, and I hate to do that, but I'm just gonna say Ethiopian thorn. If you ever see a nature show and see a giraffe, eating from top of trees with these long thorns, this is the type of thorns I'm talking about. They're prevalent throughout the Middle East and Africa. They found the thorns that this headpiece was a part of, with many puncture wounds and blood on it. Could it have been the blood of Jesus? We don't know, but it's something to think about. And this guy, he don't claim that he's found the Holy Grail of this or the Holy Grail of that. They basically date these things back to the time of Jesus, pre-Jesus, and post-Jesus, and they do a damn good job of it. And his ministry, his books, he has given his soul to this, and that's why I think it's very authentic, and I want to be a part of it. His Jeremiah Johnson, I want to say, look him up, check him out. His last show that I know of, he was on Fearless. He was on the Fearless show. Jason Whitlock, part of the Blaze Network, and that's why I saw this podcast, and it just got me to thinking. So I'm not a part of any church. Listen, I've been a Methodist, Episcopal, or CME, Christian Methodist Episcopal, all my life. I've never been baptized in any other way, in any other church, in any other sect. I'm going to die having only been baptized a Methodist in New Hope CME Church. But I do want to give a lot of my time and my thoughts and my energy to operations like this, because when you discover life outside of the Bible, that's just as much as part of the Bible, just as much as part of Jesus and his disciples and women and men of the Bible. That's beautiful, in my opinion. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I really enjoyed listening to that podcast. Matter of fact, I'm going to listen to it again today. Try to get just a little bit more context, and maybe on a future show I can share some more. Or you yourself can go listen to this guy and gain a little knowledge. But that's a beautiful thing, man. A beautiful thing. And listen, going back to the beginning of the podcast, and I mentioned the females that I had a crush on or whatever. In no way, shape, or form am I putting these females down, saying anything bad about them, wishing anything bad on them. We all have lives, and we have to go in our own directions, and that's just life. That's just a part of life. I'm blessed, I'm happy, and I thank God that He delivered me, not only my family, but my health, my spirituality. It's all based off the love of Jesus Christ. Until the day I die, everything that I do and say will be based off the love, the blood, and the sweat of Jesus Christ. Listen, I appreciate you guys. I love you. And until next time, you stay blessed in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. See you.